Welcome to Sacred Consciousness with your host, artist, and paranormal researcher, Malia Rideout. Aloha! Welcome to my channel, Sacred Consciousness. I'm your host, Malia Rideout. Today we're going to do a deep dive. And I thought, we should cut right to it because I know everybody has a lot on their schedules and I don't want to go too far off because I do want to go here and there and take some deep dives. But at this time, I'm going to kind of interverse into this really interesting story that I uncovered that has to do with after World War II and Admiral Byrd and his journey to Antarctica and what he discovered and what his son discovered in his journals after he mysteriously died. And his son mysteriously died actually very shortly after that as well, after revealing some of these journals, as well as his General Forrester. General Forrester died under very interesting circumstances as well. He was supposedly institutionalized after the Antarctica exploration and told, I'll go into how they were told not to talk about it, but he was institutionalized even though he was a four-star general. And so was Admiral Byrd. These guys were the most reputable, very heroic people. And they were really given a hard time when they came back from what I'm about to tell you about what happened to them. And then they tried to share it with the public. And well, Admiral Byrd didn't till he died, and his son revealed his journals. So let's go do this deep dive and come with me together and get warm by my fire. And I'm going to tell you this really interesting story. And you can go do the research to connect all the dots as well. And you can find out everything that I tell you is true. So I invite you to always do that whenever you're researching. You should always look at your own perspective of things and keep caught up with that. So we go into we're just going to go right after World War II, and everything was really a mess. Um, we didn't know what was, there was a lot of stuff that the people didn't know what was going on. And supposedly Hitler had died, but there was actually some whispers, I will say, that he had actually not died and faked his death and tried to exile himself quickly to Antarctica with his wife Eve. And they were basically trying to run away and escape from all of the Holocaust, everything that was going on, and they knew that stuff was it was over. And we're going to go more into the history with World War II as well, but not right now. Right now, we're going to go with Admiral Byrd. So Admiral Byrd was a reputable admiral, very high ranks and very honest and very smart. And he was given the authority from the United States government to go into Antarctica to search out what they had seen as some kind of technology or some kind of base or something. And so they were sent to explore this area, and he so did. And he brought a crew of, they brought a little legion of ships as well as some planes. And during this interaction in Antarctica, they were flying over these regions where they were, mapping and trying to find wherever this base was or whatever they were looking for. And they ran across a huge hole in the snow, and this hole was so big they could fly in it. So they did. They flew in this huge hole. This huge hole was a huge cavern and it opened up into this tropical region. They just kept going, and it was all of a sudden waterfalls and tropical. This is what the journals say that happened. And all of a sudden his craft got it started to not work. All the compasses started going crazy, and the all the pilots are like freaking out, and the controls, they didn't have any controls. Their controls were taken over, and all of a sudden these like other, what we would say maybe look like flying saucers, came and approached and were hovering around them and said, "We have control of your aircraft. You are going to be, ported in this dock," and da, 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 da. And they docked him, and he was actually met by this very, very intelligent, high in command being. and it was a very noble being, supposedly from the interactions, an Agarthian from the Agarthian underworld race that had been here for a very long time. They're human. They're like us. They're exactly like us. They're the perfect prototype of the perfect, genome of humanity. And these are the Agarthians. And that's how we'll go into some of those, how they fled the flood and all of the wars, and how they can go interdimensional, and they can even go subterranean. But that's another deep dive. We're going to do that later. So anyway, back to Admiral Byrd. So we're going deep into the Antarctic, and he's in the cavern, and he's met by this very highly intelligent being, and he writes this all in the journal, and he says that they told him that they had popped the atom and figured out how to go nuclear, and it was very dangerous. And that during the war, they had aligned with some dark forces of beings that were ET races that were not in line with the human race and did not want the best interest for us. They actually wanted to take over this world and destroy us. And this was a big part of the whole World War II, believe it or not. We've really been lied to, and we don't know our history properly, because whoever wins the war makes the history. And so if the bad guys make the history, you're gonna have to go really deep diving to find out the truth. And that's what I did. I just am a curious kind of person, and I had just so much drive to do this because I felt like this was the key to unfolding, peace for humanity and all this other stupid stuff that I want to do. But we'll talk about that again later. Anyway, back to Admiral Byrd. So he's in this cavern, and it's full of what he said was the highest technology. They had complete control over their aircraft. They were using hovercrafts that had swastikas on them, and they talked very nobly, but in like telepathy to him, so into the mind without even speaking. And he just was, floored by this. And they said, well, what we really want to, help you guys with your technology for healing. We want to help with your energy technology, so you can have free energy like Tesla wanted you guys to have, because we were in contact with him too. And so we always have, when we get great energy or great information from a higher race, somehow another darker race intervenes and doesn't allow us to use it. So this was what they were saying to him. And so he came back to America with this huge story. And same with his generals and all of the witnesses there. They would, yeah, these guys were high ranking, and they all had to be, interrogated. And this is what came out. So what became of this was unfortunate. It, the government thought this is, we, what the alien race that wasn't really an alien race said, the Garthians that were actually a human race that was part of the human race, what the Garthians told Admiral Byrd was that, you aligned with a very dark race that wants to hybrid your race and hitchhike onto your race and take over your race through biology over a period of time. And what it'll do, because it can't survive here on its own, because it's not from here, it will hijack onto your genome and take you over as a species. And it's like a parasitic race. And some of these darker fallen races of ETs aren't very nice, and they can do this in these lower realms, which we'll go into a like I said, another deep dive, the different galactic realms. And there's 11 of them, but there's also a 12th and 13th as well. So anyway, back to Admiral Byrd, and he came back and he told very honestly his generals, we have to stop nuclear war. We can't keep allying with these dark races. These gray and reptilian races are not of the human genome and of the agenda for human and for humanity. And we need to really buck up. And they said, you cannot speak of this. Oh my God, are you kidding me? This is like 1947. And this is before Roswell. So Admiral Byrd was mysteriously unlifed shortly after that. And so was his general, who was put in an insane asylum, who was backing him up, General Forrester. And it's just very unfortunate. These guys were heroes. They were very patriotic, and they tried, and they were so good. And unfortunately, these dark forces had gotten deep within our government due to fear and our own insecurities to align with some destructive force rather than a energy force or a beings that wanted the best for us through, healing and technologies and free energy. They wanted more of like, let's take over the world and defend ourselves so that we can get everybody else. But that's what the fall of Atlantis is all about. And that'll be another deep dive, um, at another date. But anyway, poor Admiral Byrd died mysteriously of like a heart attack or a stroke or something, which is very easy to do to somebody from a lot of aspects. We'll talk about that again in another deep dive of how they can do these things to you. Of course, I mean, everybody knows you can just be, taken out, but you never go in fear because you are a light being and no one can destroy you. Just like the force on Star Wars, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? So you always have to have that kind of thought pattern whenever you're dealing with these deep dives and this information, because this information has like been suppressed, and we really have to delve into it carefully and with a lot of empathy and love for whoever's not ready for it. Maybe don't watch it if you can't handle it, but this is my freedom of speech. And I've done this research myself, and I'm coming from a truthful aspect. I'm not trying to make any money off this. I make my own money through my art and my healing tools. I want to help humanity at a time of crisis when the actual apocalypse is happening. And because I know why it's happening, and it's actually not as bad as you think if you look at it in a certain way and you're prepared for it. So if you can prepare for things, you can see it in a different way, not as in fear, but as in more of maybe it's a cleansing of some kind of bad disease that may have infected the planet that has to do with AI, you know, where I'm going with that one. So, and bad dark ET races. So these are where we gotta really kind of get some clarity and get out of our little, I don't know, our keyholes and like figure this out. Like what is going on, and why are we so ignorant to our past? Why are the civilizations before us so much more advanced? And what was the flood? And why did it come upon us? And why was the whole Bible created? The whole Bible story is very real, but it's been altered and fractionalized, and you know that's how it works. You have to decipher. This is all about deciphering and going within yourself and doing your own research. And don't take my word for any of this. This is research that I've done, and I've come to these very strong conclusions. And it's been really hard on me as well because at first it was really tragic and hard, but then I started to unfold some amazing things that I was like, oh my God, when you get through all the bullshit and the trauma and whatever has happened to us, and we start to see where we're now, it becomes very exciting because we're about to go into a Star Trek society now. So, Admiral Byrd came back and he got in a lot of trouble, and he passed away, and it was really hard, and they suppressed the information. And then Roswell came upon us very quickly. About a year later, what was happening was there was a huge lightning storm that that Roswell crash was real. So there was a huge lightning storm, and that could have been some kind of cosmic war or something going on above. But if you saw pictures back then, there were pictures of this like extreme lightning going on. And during this time, something crashed, and one of the airfield bases saw it crash and had it on their radar, and then went to investigate it and found the ETs in there. And I believe one of the ETs was alive still, and that could have been where they based a couple of. See, they do this funny thing. They use the media and movies to kind of teach us what's going on, but they say, "Oh no, no, it's just a movie in your imagination." So that's their little way of telling you the truth with a little punch in the gut. No, it's just imagination. So this is where the movie Paul and the movie E.T. came from. Was this little guy who survived that crash. And the Greys are not as nice as they led them to believe they were. And that's also where we get Close Encounters of the Third Kind. So what happened is in about 1947, President Eisenhower was told this crash happened, and he went to, I believe, Delsey Base or Roswell, sorry, Roswell, to go and meet with this ET and get communication going. And so he went there, and that's when he was given this, ability to make these deals with them. And he decided, they asked, where our race is dying. We went nuclear, and our DNA has died, and we don't have male or female anymore, and we can't reproduce, and we can only keep our consciousness in these little, like, kind of ET gray bodies that are not very healthy, and they don't last very long. So we want to hijack your race. They say it really nice. We want to hijack your race and just give us some of your DNA, please, so we can keep alive. And, I'm sure they presented it and said, we'll give you all these toys like iPads and cell phones and, different kinds of, AI stuff and weapons and direct energy weapons and all kinds of, darker stuff. So yeah, they decided to kind of go in and give that to them and do the deal, and it wasn't the good deal. And they even had an intervention where Maria Orsek came. She is a Braille, she's from the Braille Society, and she was an amazing, beautiful woman. She was extremely clairvoyant. I'll show you pictures of her. I basically have uh, figured out that I think that's what they based Wonder Woman off of, is Maria Orsek's story, where she showed up from Agartha, and she needed to let everybody know, you guys are making deals with the bad guys. We told you so. We told you not to do this. They're going to hijack your race. They're going to do dark things. You'll be a taken over society. A few of you get rich and all that, but you know what? You're selling out your own race. And she was kind of saying what for. And here's how some technology is that you may be able to get off the planet, and you may be able to have free energy. And she was helping some of our deep government generals and such with this high technology, and designing these aircrafts that were like what would you would say looks like a flying saucer, and they could use the gravitational field around them, and it was like electromagnetic energy, and it was completely free energy that was like creating itself, and it was like a plasma energy, and it was totally clean, and it was what we could use for our energy too. And Tesla was talking a lot about this kind of plasma energy. But anyway, these vehicles were really enticing to the government, so they were working with Maria Orosek, and she just started designing them with these generals, and they designed them, and they got them made, and they were working. They actually worked, and there's pictures of them, and they were hovering around, and they've probably advanced it quite a lot because that was 1947. And so that escalated into some stuff happened, and she actually left a letter, and she said, I wish you the best. I came to help you guys and bring you some advanced technologies, but I'm out here because you guys are kind of going in a darker direction, and I need to get back to my people from Aldebaran. And because she had telepathic abilities, she was from this Rail Society of this ancient bloodline that has a really, really cognitive ability to have their ancestors speak to them through, like, what you would think is like an elephant memory, I would say. And that's what we eventually have as telepathy. And we all have this ability to have telepathy. If your consciousness evolves enough, you start to be able to become telepathic, telekinetic. You can heal people, you can levitate, you can do a lot of cool stuff if you get to that point. But our race was hijacked, and we were dumbed down, and this is why I'm doing the channel, is because I've discovered this amazing thing about the human race, and I'm really excited to share it with you. So again, thank you for coming to my channel, and this was a little bit of a longer deep dive. So when we speak about Admiral Byrd, bless his heart, if you when we find out later, he's probably still actually out there and in command, because you really don't die as a light being. You're a plasma light being, and that's what I was going to tell you about consciousness. Is once you start to detect your consciousness, you aren't just stuck in a body. You can go out of your body. You can go visit this cosmos. You can, go everywhere and then come back in, and it's really cool. And you can communicate through consciousness with other beings, not just humans, animals, trees, rocks, lava. I mean, it's like so amazing. The wind speaks to you all the time and me all the time, but you got to listen to the wind, right? You have to listen to the wind. So the Hawaiians knew this, and that's why I love Hawaii, and that's why I'm, incarnated here in Hawaii as Malia, and my name means calm ocean. And I really thank you for joining me today to talk about Admiral Byrd and to talk about Maria Orsak and General Forrester. They all deserve the recognition that is owed to them, and they've been suppressed this information for so long. But now we can be feeling a little more free to speak about these things because there has been a shift. And I do want you to know that. I want you to know that you're protected and that we have been being protected by these higher realms and guided as a human species for a very long time. And this is a beautiful protection. It's high technology beyond what you can even imagine. And the fact is that you are just a very special being of light and that you deserve to understand who you are. And that's why I'm excited about this channel. So if you like what I'm talking about and you think you have friends that might like what I'm talking about, you can tell them about my channel and you can come join me in my warm fireplace in my living room, and I will be open to conversations later down the line and such. And I just want to let you guys know again, thank you for coming and welcome to Sacred Consciousness.